And what I talked about this morning is the importance of having courage. How many of you have courage? How many of you know what courage means? See? Now, but here's what courage is. Courage is exactly what you all just said. It's about being respectful not only of others but of yourself. And it's the willingness to do things that are hard. How many of you do hard things? How many of you like doing hard things? Most folks don't like doing hard things, but you do it anyway. Why? To get better, because it's the right thing to do. And sometimes the hardest courage to have is the courage to stand up and possibly embarrass yourself. How many of you have ever been embarrassed? Exactly. So courage is when you're willing to do things that might cause you embarrassment, might hurt your feelings, might make people laugh at you, but you do it anyway because it's the right thing to do, because it makes you better. I'm running for governor of Georgia because I believe that our state is good, but I think our state could be much better. I think that our schools can get more money and our teachers can be better protected. I think our students should be challenged every single day, but that you should have all the support you need. You think you get everything you need every day? No. Exactly. The governor is responsible for saying how much we're willing to invest in our schools. And I'm running because I believe we have to invest in bold and ambitious children. That we have to believe that every single one of you could be the president of the United States, could be Beyonce, could be Kobe Bryant, could be Mae Jemison, could be anything you want it to be, and that the only thing that should hold you back is what you want, not what you think you're capable of. But you have to have political leaders who have the courage to, number one, talk about it. To talk about the fact that I grew up poor. I grew up in Mississippi. My parents, we lived, the water got cut off, the lights got cut off. Sometimes we were on food stamps. But my parents always said we could be anything we wanted. And they made sure that we went to school, that we went to church, that we had time in our lives to help take care of other people, that we volunteered. Because the thing they would say is no matter how little you have, there's someone with less. And your job is to serve that person. Say it with me. No matter how little you have.
No matter how little you have.
There's someone with less.
There's someone with less.
Your job.
Your job.
Is to serve that person.
Is to serve that person.
And sometimes don't you feel like you have too little and you don't have anything else to give to somebody else? But you have to do it anyway, because that's also the part of courage. Sometimes courage is doing something for other people that they won't do for you. Like when you're friends with somebody and you know that person's not a good friend to you. Anybody have friends like that? If you don't have your hand up, it's probably you. But it's that time where you're friends with people who don't always do right by you, but you try to be the best friend you can. And I'm running for governor because I want to be the closest friend to our people. I want everyone in Georgia to know that there's somebody who understands their experiences, who wants them to be stronger and better. And I'll tell you one last story. I'm one of 6 children. I'm number 2. I have an older sister who's an anthropology professor. She's a teacher at a college in Kentucky. My sister Leslie is a federal judge down in Albany. She's the first black woman in Georgia history to become a federal judge. My brother Richard has a learning disability. He has a form of dyslexia. But Richard managed to graduate from college at Payne College in Augusta, and he's now a social worker who works with kids who have autism and special needs. My little sister Janine has a PhD in evolutionary biology, and she works at the CDC. But we have a brother named Walter. Walter is number 5 of the 6 of us. Walter went to Morehouse College. But Walter dropped out of college because he's addicted to drugs. And so instead of being a lawyer or a doctor or a banker, my brother Walter's in jail. How many times do you hear politicians talk about their brothers or sisters being in jail? Nobody talks about it. Why?
Right.
Publicity wise.
Yeah, they don't want bad publicity. They want to seem perfect. I talk about my brother because my brother has challenges. He's not only a drug addict, but my brother has a mental health issue. And he was in high school when he first got sick. But we didn't have health insurance, so we couldn't get him any help. And so instead of getting help, he got sicker and he started using drugs. But I talk about Walter because I want people to know that I'm not ashamed of my brother. I love my brother. How many of you, I'm not going to make you raise your hands on this one, but a lot of us have family members who are sick. A lot of us have family members who've gotten in trouble. A lot of us have family members who've gone to jail. But you can't help someone if you refuse to admit that they need help.
Right.
And we can't move our state forward if we refuse to admit that the people in our state need help. And so I'm running for governor not only because of you all, I'm running for my brother. Because I want him to know that his sister is the governor of a state that believes that he's just as valuable. And so I'm here today because I'm excited about you. I'm excited about the work you do, about the school that you're in, about the fact that when I walked in this room, you were proud about who you are and where you go to school. And so I just want to say thank you for taking the time to listen to me, and I'm going to stop talking and let you ask me any questions you have. Okay, I only thought like 2 of you would have questions.
How did you get the opportunity where you are right now?
How did I get to be where I am now? So I went to, I graduated from high school in DeKalb County. I went to Spelman College. I went from Spelman to the University of Texas at Austin and did a master's degree. Then I went from there to Yale Law School, where I became a tax attorney. But I will tell you, I have a lot of degrees, and I'm very proud of my education. But it's also the fact that I was able to do a lot of service work. When I was in college, I volunteered for a lot of different organizations. I volunteered in high school. And because I was able to build a really strong record of public service, when I went to college, people gave me a little bit of money so I could go to college. And when I went to graduate school, I got opportunities. I once got to work in the White House. I worked for the Office of Management and Budget under President Bill Clinton. And so each of the things I've had, each opportunity I've had has been because I've been building on it. Each thing I do, I try to do better and better so that I get invited to do something else. And then when I do that one successfully, I get invited to do something else. But I'm running for governor not because anybody told me to run. I'm running because I want to. I'm running because when I looked at my resume, when I looked at the record of what I've accomplished, I thought that if you look around, I'm applying for this job, the job of being in charge of our state. And my resume was strong enough. I have the skills. I'm a good leader. I'm a good politician. I'm a good business person. I also write novels, so I'm a good writer. And I thought that those skills combined would make me a very good person to run for this job. And so what I would say to you is, it's not about what people do to put you in a position. It's what do you see for yourself, and how do you build the record you need so you have opportunities to run. Yes, sir.
Number one, I love that you were here. That's my
Well, thank you.
And went to Yale Law. Besides those points,
But you have to tell me who you are, because we're going to have the same life. Here. And tell me your name again. Okay. Please go ahead.
Through all the financial struggles that you went to, how did you manage yourself, to keep going and stay accurate educational wise?
So my mom and dad, my parents did not have the money for us to go to college, but every single one of my brothers and sisters and I went to college. We borrowed a lot of money, but we also got scholarships. So when they tell you to do good in school, when they tell you to do well and to study hard, I did very well. I was valedictorian. I was the number one person in my class when I graduated from high school. And because of that, I got scholarships to pay for a lot of college. Because you live in Georgia, if you all keep a B average, by the time you finish high school, you can go to college in Georgia, most places, almost for free. And so that's one of the ways to do it. But the other is I worked. I had jobs because I needed to make extra money. But I think no matter what you want to do, if you're willing to work hard enough, there are usually going to be pathways to help you do it. But I will say the other part of your question, it may not have been what you were asking, is sometimes when you're growing up and you don't have anything, it's hard to imagine you can have more. If you've never seen anybody in your community who has a lot, it's hard to believe that any day that you could have that. But what my parents did was they made certain we read. We spent a lot of time in the library. And we spent time understanding and learning about other lives. My mom would tell us that it didn't matter what we didn't have. What she said is, she called us genteel poor. She said we didn't have money, but we had books and we could watch PBS.
Right.
And the reason they said that was because she wanted us to understand that our economic circumstances have nothing to do with who we are. Being poor doesn't mean you are poor in mind. It doesn't mean you're poor in spirit. It doesn't mean that you can't go to Yale. My parents told us we could go anywhere we wanted to go. All we had to do was be willing to work at it. And they would help us figure out the rest. And you're in a school that believes in the same thing for you. And I want to be a kind of governor who believes that for you. So sometimes it's hard to believe in yourself. I'm reading your sign over there. It's hard to believe in yourself because when you look around and you don't have the things that all the other people you see have, sometimes you tell yourself a story that you just can't. You don't have enough. But it's the reality that if you're willing to work harder, there are going to be barriers. And don't hear me say this. There are going to be barriers and people are going to make it hard. And not everybody succeeds. But the more we're willing to try, the better we can do. Yes, sir.
As a child growing up, was it always your dream to become a governor?
So the question is, as a child growing up, was it always my dream to become governor? It was not. I actually, when I was growing up, first I wanted to be in charge of the world. Mainly, I wanted to be president of the world. I didn't realize that wasn't a real job. I used to watch a lot of Super Friends cartoons. And I lived in a community where we didn't have a lot. And the only person I could see who all the time had a lot of control was the president of the United States. And I thought, well, if you're president of the world, you could have everything you wanted. And I could end poverty. I could make sure nobody went to jail. I could make sure no one got hurt. And then I found out that wasn't a real job. And then I decided I was going to be a physicist because I love Star Trek. I love science. But it was when I was in college that I really started thinking about what I wanted to do for real. And when I was a few years out of college and out of law school, that's when I realized I one day wanted to be governor. Because it was a big enough job that if I did it well, I could help millions of people in Georgia, but I could also help people from my home state. I'm originally from Mississippi. I could help people in Mississippi. I could help people around the country. And so my job, my dream was to want to do, I always wanted to help people. I didn't always know what job it would take, but for me it was always finding the job that could allow me to help the most people possible. You can tell me your name. Tori Parker, it's a pleasure. Yes, ma'am.
Did you have any doubts in your
Oh, always. She asked me if I had any doubts in my success. I still have doubts about my success. But having doubts is not a bad thing. Doubts help you think about what else you need to work on. Anybody who thinks they are absolutely certain of everything that's going to happen should play the lottery every single day.
Right.
Everybody else has to work at it. And so the issue isn't that you don't have doubts. I'm afraid a lot. I was afraid this morning. I gave a speech this morning. I was afraid before I gave the speech. I was afraid when I gave the speech. And when they clapped for me at the end, I was afraid that, well, maybe I can't ever do that again. But the reality is you let fear and doubt help you get better. So whatever I'm afraid of, I try to learn more about it. And whenever I doubt something, I try to figure out, okay, what am I worried about? Am I worried that I didn't try hard enough? Am I worried that I didn't prepare? Am I worried that somebody's going to outwork me? Well, you can solve all of those doubts. I can work harder than anybody. I can prepare. The only doubts that I can't get rid of are the doubts about what other people think. And then I realize I can't do a thing about what other people think. I can't make anybody do anything I want them to do. The only thing I can control is what? Yourself. And so it's okay to have doubts about yourself as long as you don't stay in those doubts. Acknowledge them. Call them what they are, and then see what you can do to solve them. Yes, ma'am. My major in college. I majored in political science, economics, and sociology. So I studied politics, money, and people. And then I went to college and went to law school and grad school. Yes, sir. I'm going to come up with a round.
Throughout your entire life, who was your biggest supporter growing up?
My parents. It wasn't just one. I have an amazing mother and father who believed that we could do anything because they both did a lot more than people thought they could. My father is dyslexic. Raise your hand if you know what dyslexia is. So my father couldn't read. And he grew up in the 1950s before they knew what dyslexia was. He was just a young black man who couldn't read. So they told him he was stupid. But my father realized that he couldn't read the way everyone else did, but he could learn. He just learned differently. And he became the first man in his family to ever go to college. My mom's family was really, really poor. My dad's family was poor, but my mom's family was really poor. They were too poor to afford the bus. And you used to have to pay for the bus to go to school where she lived. And she dropped out of school, but people believed in her. And she went back to school, and my mom finished #1 in her class, became the only one of her 7 siblings to finish high school. And so when I was growing up, my parents believed that we could do anything because they had both done so much that no one thought they could do. And even to this day, they are so happy to help me. And they come from Mississippi to Atlanta whenever they can to be supportive. My mom calls Chelsea, who works with me all the time, asking what else she can do for my campaign because they're the biggest cheerleaders I've ever had. Yes, ma'am. It wasn't any one person who inspired me to run for governor. Oh, but before I do that, I need names.
And Nicole.
So it wasn't one person. I think poverty is wrong. I think it is mean. I think it is immoral. But I also think it's unnecessary. That there are systems in place that make poverty consistently occur because we don't want to lift other people up. I think that racism is wrong. I think sexism is wrong. And what drove me to run for office, what has driven me to run for governor, is not a single person, but the fact that I've been able to get all these skills, that I've been able to build this resume. I've started businesses. I've been good in government. I think that I can stop poverty. I can't do it all by myself because I'm not the president of the world, because that's not really a job. But what I was thinking about when I was calling president of the world really was about how do you change the systems? How do you use politics and money and understanding people to make life better? And so for me, it wasn't one person. It really was a mission. I think poverty is wrong, and I want to fix it. Yes, ma'am.
Do you ever think?
Tell me your name.
Do you ever think that you could work so hard enough to become the president?
Question is, do I think I could work hard enough to one day become the second black president and the first black woman president in the United States? That is something I would like to think about, but not until after I figured out how to become the first black woman to be governor in the history of the United States. Let me get that one done first, and then I'll come back to you. What motivates me is that as I said, I believe that poverty is wrong, but I also think you can fix it. There are a lot of things that seem so big, you can't figure out how to do anything about it. When you think about racism, do you think you can actually ever end racism? Do you think you can end poverty? Something seems so huge, it seems like it's impossible. And when something seems impossible, sometimes it's just easier to sit down. It's easier to just read a book or watch television. But my family raised me to believe, and that's what I was talking about early on. My parents raised me to believe that you fight for people who need you. And even if I don't have everything I need, I've got more than somebody else. So I have friends who are undocumented, who are in the country. Their parents didn't bring them into the country legally. And some of them worked for me. They were interns for me. And they interned for me not because they didn't have other options, but because I wanted them to know that there's someone who was willing to look out for them. I have friends who are facing other challenges, and my job is to try to defend them, try to use the opportunities I've had, the platforms I have, the power, the little power I have to try to help them. So what motivates me is not that I can solve every problem, but that I can try, that I can work harder, and I can use the gifts that God has given me and the blessings that I have, and I can get over my doubts and not try to figure out how to solve the world, but let me solve my part of it. And if I can solve my part of it, then I can solve another part of it. But more importantly, I can go to places like this, and I can get y'all to help me too. Because the things I want to tackle, the things I want to fix, I can't fix by myself. But if I do my job, then you all will find things that you can fix. And you will then help other people find what they can fix. Because as long as we think it's one person's job, then we don't have a responsibility. But if it's all of our jobs, we just have to figure out which part of the problem we have to fix. Then we can all get it done. Any other questions besides the people in the really pretty red coats?
Okay, next question.
You're in a pretty red coat too, but go ahead.
Hi, my name is Claire Nelson. I was wondering, how did you overcome your obstacles in life?
How to overcome my obstacles in life. One is by understanding what they are. Because sometimes the obstacles are inside, and sometimes the obstacles are outside. So, I'm talking to all of you. Do you know what being introverted is? Being introverted is when you don't like talking to people. You don't mind it, but you're not really. For people who are extroverts, people who like going to parties, like hanging out, like talking to folks, and then introverts tend to be by themselves. I'm an introvert. One of my obstacles was internal, which is that I was an introvert, but I wanted people to do what I needed them to do. So I had to learn how to talk and talk to people. I'm not shy, but I'm not very excited about being out in public a lot. So that was an internal problem. External. Sometimes people don't think you can do something because they think your skin color or because your gender means that you're not qualified for it, or because of where you're from. And so those obstacles I can only overcome by working hard. But often the first road to overcoming an obstacle is understanding not only what the problem is, but why it's a problem. So if people don't think you can do something because they don't think you know enough, what's the solution? If you don't know enough to do a job, how do you overcome that? Y'all are in a school. What do you do if you want to
Learn about it.
There you go. You learn about it. There's some obstacles you can overcome because you learn more. But if the obstacle is that they're concerned about my race, is there anything I can do about that? No. And so then I realized part of the way to overcome obstacles is to realize it's not my problem. I'm not responsible for your concerns about my race or my gender. All I can control is me. And so my responsibility is to then be really, but to understand why you're concerned. Are you concerned about race because you're afraid I'm going to be mean? Are you concerned about it because of stereotypes? My job isn't just to not be upset about it, it's to understand what caused it. I work in a job where a lot of people don't look like me. They don't have my same experiences. And sometimes people think the way to answer that is just be mean about it. That's not my approach. My approach is I want to understand what you're worried about. Because often what people call racism or sexism or any of the other isms, there's something underneath that they're worried about. And so part of what I like to do is find out what else you're worried about. Because I may not be able to solve the superficial problem, but I might be able to help you understand the next part of it. Okay, I think I can do one more question. I got to go.
Yeah.
Can I speak from somebody not where? Yes, perfect. Who else did call? To solve poverty. To end poverty. That's it. Yes.
My name is Michaela Porter, and I just want to know what, like being a child that was poor, who helped you become the person that you want to be?
Tell me your name again. It really was my parents most of all, because both of my parents were much poorer than we were growing up. But when I talk about my mom and dad, I'm so proud of them because they didn't let that obstacle stop them. They didn't have any money, so we couldn't go to fancy schools. But they made sure they lived on the street that got us right into the right school district. And we didn't have the ability to go on vacations. And so we would take family vacations at our house where my mom and dad would read to us about other places. Or we would, one time we saw something, we wanted to go on a wildlife vacation. So my mom and dad took us to the national park. And then we realized none of us like hiking. My dad had to carry all of us out. He was very unhappy about that vacation. But they always tried to find ways to make sure, even though we didn't have the same resources other people did, that we never felt that we didn't have enough. And when you learn that the money isn't the same as the information, it's not the same as the experience, it's not the same as opportunity. We didn't have money, but we had all these other things that can help us make up for it. But then I made sure I worked hard so I would one day get to have some money too. Right. Because one of the reasons I'm running for governor is I want people to have prosperity. I don't want people to be poor. But the way you end poverty is by also making certain people have the ability to make money. That they don't work 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day, and make just enough to get by. I want people who work in the state of Georgia to earn enough money to take care of themselves, to enjoy themselves, to take care of their families. And that drives me because I know what it's like when you don't have that. So that's my mission. I got to stop talking, so I want to say thank you to all of you for listening. And now I'm going to turn around, and they're going to take some pictures of us together. Get you folks to come around me and make me look good. Come on.
This is the camera.
Okay.
Is it gonna
Take it.
Do you want me to do anything with it?
No, it's recording. I just wanted it to